Well, the church I was in kicked me out. I mean, the minister was my best friend and my roommate in college.
Wally and I became friends in the early 1970s. We met through mutual friends, and that was the era of the Jesus movement. And I had just become a Christian. A lot of my friends had just become Christians. You know, the 60s was kind of this crazy time in America, and the thing is that at the end of the 60s, everybody was asking a lot of spiritual questions, including me, including Wally, including most of the people that I knew. And so I ended up coming down here to Dallas to go to college. Wally came down from, Jeff City, Missouri. That was the context of our friendship, you know, in Christian groups on campus at SMU. Yeah, when I think about Wally, this is 40 years ago. And so I remember Wally being full of life, lots of energy, really funny, different. I think everybody was attracted to Wally in the sense that he was just a great guy to be around. And what we had some friends in common, and we had Jesus Christ in common, and I thought he was a fascinating person. There wasn't anybody like Wally. He was like the big dog in terms of the art school. He was a great painter, and everybody I met said, "You don't really realize what an artist Wally is." And I was involved in ministry at the time. I was doing youth ministry. I was getting ready to go to seminary, things like that. And we just bonded. We just became great friends.
Now, after graduation, what happened with you and Wally?
I went overseas for a year over to Great Britain, and I missed his wedding, and he always reminded me of that, so I couldn't be there for that. He met Denny, started their relationship, got married, started having kids. I came back to Dallas after a couple years. We reconnected. I got to see his family growing, and then I met this girl named Darlene. We got married. Wally was in my wedding, and that was in the late 70s.
Academy too. That was the horrible thing, is I was on my way that day. He knew it. I was in a hurry. I was nervous. I was going to another interview for a job. I had butterflies in my stomach. I had a pit in my stomach because I was so scared. I had just gotten fired at one school. I was trying to apply at another school, and of course I was extremely scared.
Correct.
Yeah, we saw each other much more when Wally and Denny decided to come to our church. I was pastoring a church in Richardson. They were living up in McKinney. He was working at Trinity. Tremendous. I think Wally maybe started the arts department at Trinity. And so again, we didn't see each other's worlds that much, but then they decided to come to our church. And so we reconnected, began seeing each other a lot more. He and I would go out to breakfast, talk about life. It was around that time, not too long after that everything kind of blew up in terms of their marriage and family. And that was a pretty difficult time. I think it's kind of like an explosion, everybody gets hurt. I'm trying to think how this is to best describe this. Wally was at a period of his life when he was realizing that his homosexuality was going to become his lifestyle, and that was going to there was a collision course that he was on with his family and his marriage and his relationship with his kids and with his friendships and with his church. And I don't think any of us were prepared for that.
And he knew that, and yet he chose that as the time to say, this is what he did. He goes, okay, for a second one, before you leave, and I was already standing up to pay and to go out. I mean, that's how he waited till the end. I mean, I was leaving to go to my interview. I had to take off my friend's cap and put on my church cap.
It's volatile because it involves real human beings and relationships and friendships. And so I remember back when Wally and I were discussing this, it was difficult because we've got a very close friendship. And I've got my friend hat on, and I've got my pastor hat on, and I'm trying to figure it out.
My official pastor's cap for a moment, and I went, oh, that's funny. I thought he was judging it, going, he's kind of crazy. I thought, oh, that's funny. And I was going, okay, but I gotta go. And he goes, no, I'm serious. I go, serious about what? He goes, the elders and I, on behalf of Fellowship Bible Church, do not want you to commune with us and worship with us any longer. And I looked at him, I said, you are joking, right? You're kicking me out of the church? He goes, I guess you could say that, yes.
And we're both realizing that the Bible's talking about homosexuality in a way that it wasn't the way things were originally intended to be. And yet Wally was walking into that lifestyle as much of, and we talked about the struggle of it, and we found ourselves seeing things differently. But it was not just my relationship with him that was being strained at the time. It was his relationship with Denny and others at work. And I just think that the whole issue, it's easy to talk about it philosophically, but when you put close relationships, the tendency is to fall off on one side or the other, just to say, well, hey, let's just forget about it. It's no big deal. It's not an issue. Well, it was an issue. On the other hand, you go to the other extreme and say, well, I'm not going to, associate with you because we can't, and that's legalistic, and that's hard, and that's not loving. So how do you walk through this together, maintaining truth and love? And we tried, I think we tried, and I think that the whole experience, of his family and his work and his friendships, it just was a very difficult time.
I go, Steve, you've known I was gay my whole life. He's known me from the very. I said, you went to Tom Arp's house and talked to him after you found out that he had seduced me in Paris and blah, blah, blah. You've known this all along, and you're kicking me out of the church? He goes, yeah. I said, you really are? And this is in the middle of Kubi's, which is a very busy German deli in Highland Park at Steiner Plaza. And I just said, fuck you! And walked out. And that was the last thing I said to him for 20 years. I never heard from him again until last year, when he apologized. But he hurt me so badly. That was it. I mean, that fuck you was so real. That was the most honest fuck you I've ever said to anybody. I mean, I meant it. Fuck you. How dare you? How dare you do what you're doing? How dare you do it when you're doing, when you know I'm on my way? I mean, then I had to go to a job interview.
I think we'll always be friends. I look up to Wally. He's always been an encourager to me. Very creative. There's the fun side of Wally, and then there's the just absolutely sincere, spiritual quest for a close relationship with God, for understanding the scriptures. That's what I think of when I think of Wally.
Can you imagine that? What that did? Well, I mean, I got the job, which is strange, considering the fact that before I ever walked into a classroom, the nuns called me in. They presented me with an envelope, and there were 2 letters from Trinity people who had said, you're hired a fag, by the way, to teach in your school, and this is a Catholic school. Do you think that's Christian of you? So, and the nuns were saying, we don't care. We think this is a great place for a homosexual male to teach in an all-girls school. That's great. We don't have to worry about you.
And so your sexuality didn't become an issue at Ursuline?
It did later.
And what became of that?
I was fired 4 years later.
Because you were homosexual?
I don't know. They wouldn't tell me. We had just won the state TAPS art competition. We'd come from last place in the state to first place in the state within 4 years. The same day, we had just won the Catholic National Art Competition, one of my 9th graders. And they were giving out all the contracts. And what they do in private schools is they offer you a contract. They don't renew a contract every year at a public school. So in public school, they have to give you reasons for firing you. But in private schools, they just don't invite you back. That's how they deal with it. So it's real cut and dry. So I didn't receive a contract in my box, which I thought, okay, they want me to coach volleyball because they had talked to me about that earlier. I thought, well, they're readjusting my contract to reflect, coaching volleyball. That's what I thought. So I was walking down the hallway because I thought under no condition would I not be hired back. I was like super successful. I was having the best year I'd ever had teaching in my life. It was fabulous, And the principal walked by me and she says, well, I need to see you in my office after school. And I went, what? I said, Sean, by the way, I didn't get my contract. And she goes, well, that's what we're going to talk about. I said, well, what? What are we talking about? And she goes, well, just show up. And then so I walk in after school, and I was expecting her to hand me my contract to sign with the raise, the whole bit. And she goes, we're not offering you a contract. And I went, what? She goes, you're the best teacher we have at this school, but we can't hire you back for next year. I go, what do you mean we can't hire me back? We can't. What do you mean we can't? What is it that can't? Why can't you hire me back? What's happening that you've got to tell me? She goes, well, actually, since we're not firing you, legally I don't have to tell you why we're not hiring you back. I don't have to tell you anything. She goes, as a matter of fact, I can't tell you anything. I went, what, Sean? Do you realize my head's exploding right now? I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea why you wouldn't hire me back. I have no idea. We just had a super successful year. The students love me. I've gotten all perfect evaluations. All my evaluations were glowing from the head of the department. How could I possibly not be hired back? I haven't done anything wrong. I haven't been caught or accused of anything, so why wouldn't I be hired back? She said, well, let me just say, you're just too open. I went, and then I went, open. Open. Okay, and then I kept thinking, but the nuns told me that I was safe there. They even gave me an Ursuline Academy mug as a memento, a promise that I was safe there.